Welcome to Hungry Hip Hop, potluck style reviews where we dish out the freshest takes on what these artists are serving up. We're looking for the spiciest bars, vibes, and production in order to expand our palettes and diversify our playlists. So today we will be reviewing the album Beyond Bulletproof by Mozzy. Mozzy is a rapper from Sacramento, California, specifically Oak Park neighborhood, which was like 15, 20 minutes from where I grew up. So definitely heard stories about that neighborhood all the time growing up. But yeah, so he's a rapper from there. He's been rapping for quite a while now, actually. Maybe like 2013-ish, 2014-ish. He's like where I got more serious around that time. Prolific rapper, drops albums pretty often, like 3 to 4 a year. Really got his blow up in 2015 with his album Blah Da Da, lead single Blah Da Da. Really kind of took over the internet and like made it to a lot of different gang circles. I was actually just telling Juan before we started the podcast that I was on like the game Snapchat and the game was like blasting in his car. I know that 21 Savage put on his Snapchat. He got features from YG. Kendrick shouted him out at the Grammys back in 2017 or 18, I believe. So yeah, that's mainly Mozzy, gangster rapper, Sacramento, blood member. And yeah, we can get started. So this album, Beyond Bulletproof, I liked it. I will say, me being like a Mozzy fan, I haven't been listening to him since around 2016. This isn't my favorite project by him. He definitely, I feel, has had better in terms of lyrics and production. But I did think this was a pretty good album still, you know, because stays with the pretty similar topics, which is reflection on gang life in the hood, a lot of reflection on death of his friends, death of the ops, police stuff. He's not super political in this album, and he's never, not too many of his albums are he's incredibly political, so he's not super political in this one too, but he does, every once in a while, you'll hear lyrics where he's talking about police or, juries and Black people's treatment and the criminal justice system and things of that nature. But yeah, so this album is, I believe it was 13 tracks, and it's like 40 minutes long. But yeah, I believe it's 13 tracks. So I would say I really love the first track, Unethical and Deceitful. What'd y'all think about that? Did y'all like that one?
Strong start in my mind.
Yeah.
This is Alan here. This is the first time I've listened to anything by Mozzy, and having Unethical and Deceitful be my first experience, I thought was great. It gave me kind of a taste of you're in for a really I would actually say an almost old school kind of rap album that has a little bit of light mix of R&B towards the middle of the album, but there's going to be just like real bars about coming up from a rough past, and that kind of continued through the whole album. And I thought for a song that just wants to make an impact right off, it was just a great strong start.
Like he's pretty lyrical for a gangster rapper, huh? Like,
yeah.
He's really out there. That was one of the first things that I noticed when I started listening to him was he's talking about the similar topics, obviously drugs, girls, guns, and whatnot. But he's a great storyteller, and he has a way with words that's just obviously very good for making rap music. A couple of lines in this song that I really liked. Like one of the first thing, I think it's like the second line of the song where he says, disrespectful when we kicked his dead homie candle, which is like candles at, funerals and kicked over the homie's candle and whatnot. And like he has a lot of lyrics where it's like, you would think like that's like, savage or like pissing on somebody's grave. It's like, dude, are you kidding me? But like just on how like gang warfare in general, like people don't think of it as warfare, but it is. Like for all intents and purposes, it's genuinely warfare. It's like probably more devastating because it's at your home where you live. Your family's around. You don't get to just escape it. You don't serve a couple years or whatever. Like it's a lifelong war that you're in with other people who live 2-3 blocks from you. And so a lot of stuff. Also in that song, he has a line where he says, "Fuck a truce, double homicide. We went up a deuce." And I like that too, where the idea of like, you guys should come together or whatever. He's like, nah, fuck that. We killed 2 of them. We went up on the scoreboard. And he mentions that a lot throughout his songs too. And it's like, that's such a wild mindset to me. Like that's it's so foreign to my mind. This idea of, yeah, no, we killed 2 of your homies. Now we're up. It's like, what? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, that's dramatic, in my opinion.
Well, actually, Mark, if I could follow up one thing that you said in the
Yeah.
intro, that it didn't get very political, and
Mhm.
I agree it doesn't talk about like here's why the Black Lives Matter movement is important,
Mhm.
but in the context of this song especially, but kind of coming up as someone who's literally in a gang, he talks a lot
Mhm.
about like running into Rico and
Mhm.
well actually he does actually comment on if the Black Lives Matter, then why aren't we treated equal? And I
Mhm.
feel like he's not political in the sense of like I'm Macklemore, I'm about to like say all these things, but
Thank God.
here's well, well, yes, but here's my experience has been that Black lives don't matter. So everyone who is saying this now, like the movement, it's good that everyone's having this movement. But for Mozzie, someone kind of growing up in a rough part of Sacramento, it's it's like this is a little late. And so he's developed this almost this like gangster lifestyle where he says, I ain't got friends, just lawyers and paralegals. So I think he is definitely political, but it's just not in in the way that I feel like a lot of people would say, be a nice political rapper, say what you need to say. Like
Yeah.
Mozzie's out here and he's just saying, this is the life I grew up with. This is what I live in. Especially in this first song right off the bat.
This is Juan here. I have to say, like, I think the line that you brought up, Alan, was one of the few political lines that I felt on the album. And I think that made it really stand out as,
Mhm.
oh, he's saying something beyond his context, his immediate context. I appreciated that he was very much sticking true to his context. You know, there's two different ways of talking about politics. There's like politics in terms of like government, institutions, things like that, but there's also like people negotiating and working together, just the kind of day-to-day stuff that is also a kind of political thing.
Yeah.
And I think there he touches on that a lot. Like it's constantly like if the first song is called "Unethical and Deceitful,"
Yeah.
but also throughout it's a lot of talk of betrayal, a lot of talk of the way that people are countering the codes that that they're supposed to be living under as a group,
Yes.
and the way that that's causing destruction and causing him to distrust. And so even though it's not like this kind of grand message that's applicable to everyone, I still think it's incredibly interesting the way that he's tackling these ethical dilemmas.
And side note to something that you just mentioned of like betrayal and whatnot. That was something I just kept noticing. He kept bringing up throughout this whole album is snitches. Like
Yeah.
like, which I mean, obviously makes sense. Like as a gang member, you're doing a whole lot of stuff, illegal stuff, and you're doing it, you know, with other people, whether you're other crew. And so, if you can't trust one of them, or if they go and snitch, then like all y'all down, you know, it's all fucked up. And so I imagine he's probably seen that a lot, whether his own gang members or whatever, when lawyer or attorney's telling you like, yeah, you're about to serve 25, or say a couple things, you'll be out in 6 months. And so he's like, yeah, like he mentions a ton of times about don't you dare like say anything, like all these snitches who rather give up their homies and just sit behind bars or whatever.
So there's even a line on the song, snitches convincing niggas it's Gucci. We got to stop that. There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
ambiguity. No, you don't talk to police. No.
But back to like the political side, also on the same song, he has a line where he says, crackers killing unarmed Africans, we ain't solved that. That should be hard for me to turn the other cheek. I get to tweak and think about my people dangling from the trees.
That's a good one.
And yeah, like, and so I guess when I said like this album like wasn't super political, Mozzy's always from since I started listening to him, he's been pretty political. He has lines in most of his songs, but like it's never like a theme of an album isn't ever really fully, political. But I mean, it's part of his lifestyle. And his grandmother, I believe, was actually a Black Panther too. So he was like kind of raised in all this. But yeah, I mean, I really like that song. There wasn't a ton of bangers on this album, which he actually surprisingly does go more the like mellow, like instrumental route, and just kind of will rap his thoughts over it. There's maybe Body Count, the song Overcame, Off the Muscle, but like other than that, I didn't see too many bangers on this. It was pretty mellow album. Decent amount of features. None that really stuck out to me. He had Polo G, who we reviewed recently. So the reason I liked Polo G, if I'm being honest, was because lyrically, kind of, he was like Mozzy in the terms of like warning his friends. But I like the rap better than the singing, and so Polo G on this didn't really do much for me because I actually preferred the stuff that Mozzy does. Like, yeah, those are my over thoughts on the album. Like, I thought it was a pretty good album. Not his best work. He definitely has better, but he was still very lyrical, still reflecting on gang life.
Yeah, so I think this album really took me back. When I first listened to it, I felt like he was really channeling the early 2000s sounds throughout. Like the whole, like, I think some people call it like ringtone rap or the bling era, whatever you want to call it. That kind of era of hip hop, like people like 50 Cent. So I was kind of hearing that a lot in the instrumental. I feel like at that time, people were beginning to discover that every Mac comes with GarageBand. And we're just using the stock sounds. To me, that's what really establishes the early 2000s hip hop sound, is just generic ass like sounds that you found on your computer by default. And I feel like that's what it has a lot of, which it was nostalgic, but at the same time, it felt very cheap for that reason.
I gotcha.
And also, I've never really listened to an album where afterward I was like, I really wish I had listened to Ja Rule instead. Like, he just sounded like a worse Ja Rule, like in his inflection and his flow. That's all I kept hearing, and it just felt like an even more tone deaf Ja Rule.
Oh, damn.
Wow. Okay.
That I didn't really like. I thought the features really carried this album for me. The singing features, I think, were all on point. I thought the rappers always outshined him, and they really made this album a lot more bearable for me.
Milo, what did you think of it?
I really did enjoy this album. This is Milo, live and in stereo. And first of all, his style of rapping just reminded me too much of TJ. That he's a scam rapper on YouTube.
Oh my God. That might be the most disrespectful thing I've ever heard, dog.
What exactly is a scam rapper?
He basically teaches people how to like scam Bitcoin machines and stuff over a beat, but the way he raps, it's so, how can I put this? It's such an unrefined technique. It's difficult to replicate. Like, I couldn't provide an example of what it sounds like. You have to hear it. His voice was really distracting, and his technique was just not my favorite. And it overpowered whatever lyrical message he was trying to deliver. The production for me wasn't the worst. And for the songs like I think it's Can't Let Me Go or Can't Let You Go. I think he actually sampled the song Can't Let You Go by Fabulous. And there was the last track he sampled Let Me Love You by Mario.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought it was.
So those two tracks I enjoyed, but only because the production took advantage of my millennial nostalgia. So there was nothing else about the track that drew me in. But I don't have a positive take on this album. I didn't like it.
Not even lyrically?
Well, the content isn't much different from what we heard from, say, Polo G or other gangster rappers out there. And then when you have such poor execution, it's not going to stand out to me, if that makes any sense.
I get it.
I thought he was also really offbeat.
Yeah,
in a really weird way. Sometimes I'm okay with offbeat artists. I think it can be interesting and unorthodox. But for him, he was inconsistent in his offbeatness. So he'd accidentally get on beat at times. And then I would be like, okay, I'm into it for a second. And then he would take me out of it immediately. Like, it was just not consistent.
I did not hear that, but shit, I guess maybe it was just me. Alan, your thoughts?
So what I'm going to say, I essentially have the same feedback that Juan had, that when I was listening to this, I really felt like I was listening to like an old The Game record or something, where there's the production is really like loop based, where they'll find like, oh, here's a guitar sample that goes for like 30 seconds on songs like even Big Homie from the Hood and Price Tag. I did come out of it a little more positive than you did, Juan, especially because I didn't know that Can't Let You Go was sampled from a different song. I haven't heard that one before. So I actually ended up liking it, and I just had this feeling like this is kind of a classic R&B rap song mixture that I would have heard in like the early 2000s, right? Like you said, 50 Cent. When you do have these kind of like guitar loops, piano loops that are pretty short, the song will tend to drag, right? Where sometimes if the song goes over 3 minutes, I'll feel like, okay, maybe we didn't have to do the chorus like that last time. That's came up on the song Overcame, for example, and Boys to Men. But I want to say I did come away feeling a little more positive than Juan and Milo, which is weird just because I do feel like all the same things that you guys have said about this album, I do agree with, except for I didn't catch him being offbeat. Next time I listen to this album, most likely I won't be able to not hear it at this point. I was going to say the same thing that Milo said as well, that I felt like this reminds me of Polo G. And then I was not surprised to hear, oh, Polo G has a song on here. And it sounds like this could have been on the Polo G album. But I guess to start us off, I did want to talk about that song Price Tag, because I thought they made a really cool decision to incorporate some like Spanish flamenco guitar in the beginning, that they're not afraid.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to just let it play out for a while and give you a real like guitar intro. But my feedback is after it loops once, they bring in the 808s and the drums just sound very loud. And so it didn't give me the chance to really like enjoy the subtlety that the guitar brought, because it's just drowning by these drums. But it was nice to hear from Polo G again, I guess, even though I probably wouldn't have noticed it was him if I didn't just read it in the title. But that is one of the songs that I enjoyed. Mark, what do you think about it?
That was the only song where I had a note where I said like I didn't really enjoy the song. Like I'm actually like serious, like Polo G kind of dropped me out of it. Like I don't know, I'm just not a fan of that type of singing a ton. Even though I did like his album, I thought it was cool, but like, yeah, it's just not the sound for me. He did have a line in that song though, where he says in Price Tag, where he says, "I just checked the gram, nobody died. We doubled back though," which makes it feel like to me like they went on a hit. They looked on Instagram, he's still alive. All right, we went right back. You know, like and like I don't know, like those are just littered throughout this album. He has one line like this gave me chills on the song I Ain't Perfect. He says a line where he says, "On Jesus Christ, retaliation helped me sleep at night." So like the only thing that makes me feel better is the fact of knowing that I killed some of your homies. Like Jesus, like I don't know. It's kind of like something that kind of like chills you to the bones when you hear about it.
I understand that sentiment in the sense of like I get it. You want revenge, and I'm a very privileged person to say this. But I know it's sad that he does kind of have that mindset, because if people are so motivated by revenge, that's how you get these like cycles of gang violence, right? And then eventually it'll be like, okay, now no one remembers what, for example, two gangs were originally fighting over. Now it's people want revenge, and the only way to get revenge is by more killing. I don't know. It's just a sad sentiment to me, because I actually did make a note of that line as well.
Yeah, it's really sad. Like that's the reason why people are like, why can't the gangs just like come together? Like, you know, you see the pictures of like a red and a blue guy tied together and, you know, shit like that. But the reason the shit never lasts isn't because like people don't want peace. It's because like if you're gonna get peace, you have to say at some point, that person who killed my friend, I gotta let that go. That person who killed the only person that I hang out with, I have to let it go. And no one's willing to let that go. So like as much as you could say you want peace or whatever, like you're gonna like someone's gonna come do a drive-by on your homie, and then you gotta be like, you know what, I'm gonna let it go. And it's just not gonna happen, especially when the gang is your life. And so a lot of times like these are legit their families. They're more important than the blood family they have. And so if someone goes and like kills some of them or whatever, like you're not gonna let that shit go. And so yeah, like it's really sad, but like it's just the truth of living that lifestyle.
I definitely want to return to Price Tag. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the guitar, but I really like Polo G, but I'm also probably the biggest Polo G fan here. I thought he sounded great on the beat. And I loved the way that him and Lil Papa shared the hook together. And so it just kind of made it a little bit dynamic. I also really liked the way the hook said price tag on his head. It ain't shit to get your mind bought. So like price tag on his head, bought mind, like that connection there I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I do agree. I like how you pointed out that when Lil Papa and Polo G come together, because there is so much of this album that if I do have criticism, it's that Mozzy does tend to sound pretty similar points. So whenever we can get multiple voices or some kind of production switch up to give the album that variety, I do think it's pretty sweet. And along with the like unique style of guitar, this was one of the standout songs to me, because it was kind of, at least to some level, sounding different than a lot of the other songs to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually proud of myself for recognizing it was Polo G. When I heard his voice, I was like, I've heard this song. I actually was looking at my notes as Juan was talking about the song, and I even wrote down Polo G was a lot better on this song than Mozzy was.
Mm-hmm.
He was a lot easier to take. But I liked the guitar. I'm sorry you didn't like it, Juan.
That's okay.
Also, that line I was trying to say about snitching is on the song Betrayed, where he says, "Where's loyalty to the oath you were under, cracked under pressure when them crackers got on your bumper." When they really started pressing you. Another one I really like too, and I actually heard this one a while ago, and I'll give the little story behind this. He has a line on the song "I Ain't Perfect" where he says, "I'm sipping slow, told the world I quit." I'm sipping slow, told the world I quit. It's hard to kick it though. At least I don't promote it on the gram. It's my addiction though. So Mozzy is a super lean rapper. Actually, right before this podcast, I was showing Juan. So quick story. Juan and I went to a Mozzy concert back in 2016 in Southern California. And I've been to a decent amount of rap concerts, and most of them are full of like mainly white kids, right? This Mozzy show, though, was very different. This Mozzy show was full of gang members, like just straight up red rags and blue rags. Juan could completely testify to this. It was full of gang members. But either way, so like I have a picture where like literally he had his bottle of like syrup like on the fucking stage, like which was pretty funny. Yeah, so I saw in an Instagram video he posted, but actually it went viral. He posted an Instagram video a few years back where he was at a gas station and he took like a whole bottle of lean, which is like 2-3 grams, some shit, and just poured it right on the ground. And it was like the kick the cup challenge, like trying to like, this shit isn't cool, don't do it or whatever. And so when I read this line, I told the world I quit. It's hard to kick it though. At least I don't promote it on the gram. It's my addiction though. A lot of rappers a lot of put all the grandma, look at me, I just got another bottle, blah, 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 and like he recognizes the power he had. And so even though he tried to quit and he couldn't, like he's still not going to promote this shit, which I thought was pretty cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that without the backstory, but when you put it in context, it makes a lot more sense.
Mozzy's second verse on this song, I mean, really this whole song is a highlight for me, but especially the second verse when he's talking about kind of his more humble beginnings, that he's opening a box of Apple Jacks. He sees some roaches. He talks about his mom managing the McDonald's. And then eventually it gets to the line that you brought up earlier. When I was listening to this album, I thought a lot about the Polo G album we reviewed, but I noticed Mozzy spends a lot more time in the past and in his rough beginnings, even more than Polo G did on that last album. And I feel like the story that you just talked about, combined with how much time he spends back in the ghetto, especially, I do appreciate this album is pretty violent and there's a lot of like dark topics on it, but I do appreciate kind of the overall narrative that he's going for, that like I'm not going to promote drugs even if I use them. I'm not killing just for fun. I don't think killing is cool, but killing is something I need for catharsis, right? So
he's not really trying to glamorize it.
Yeah, and so I feel like that theming is really consistent through the whole album, and that's why when I'm saying this album isn't political necessarily, it's not, but it has a very clear stance, which I appreciate.
If you go back, so like I said, he drops a lot of music, right? If you go back to like, I would say 2016 and earlier, Mozzy's lyrics are way more like current. Like I'm talking about like a specific gang member who's still alive, who lives on that block, like type of current shit, and like just dissing other like gang members on his tracks. But like the more you go from like he's like now out the hood and whatnot, now it's more reflective of the past. Whereas Polo G, like, just got famous, I'm pretty sure, right? Like pretty recently. So
yeah, I think he moved to LA last year.
Yeah. And Mozzy was living in LA I think, yeah, at least it's 2016. He was on probation though. I think he couldn't leave or some shit like that. I don't remember. My favorite hook on this is on the song Overcame. And I know, Alan, you said like the hook kind of came in too often, which that's, I can see that. It did come in a lot. But I also thought it was a really great hook. And like I love the lyrics. So how I'm supposed to tell my youngin' go to school when they just caught him at the light rail, stripped him for his jewels. How I'm supposed to tell my auntie not to use when she ain't got no other means or methods to numb abuse. I know your pain, baby, but look at all the other shit you overcame, baby. In search of love, only reason why we game begging. Dove in the bloody waters, Granny can't save them. That's how the game may be. That I feel could be like a little microcosm for the entire album in a way. You know, especially the like how I'm supposed to tell my youngin' go to school when they just robbed him at the light rail. You know, I've been on that light rail down there. It's scary. You know, you know, like yeah, like how are you supposed to focus on school when you just got like a new little chain or some Jordans and some dudes just come up, beat the shit out you and jack you? You know, like how am I supposed to focus on this math test I got? You know, an hour or whatever. You know, his auntie who's a drug addict. You know. And he talks about himself in other albums being a crack baby, like his mom being like a heavy drug user. And like, this is just the life that I was brought in. This is the pain that we go through on like a regular basis. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty interesting. That's why I think if I had to pick a favorite song, this would actually be my favorite song on the album.
Yeah, I really like that hook too. I thought it really demonstrated an awareness from Mozzy about like the desire to have the people around him find a different way of life, but at the same time understanding that he didn't choose this just freely. There were a lot of external factors that led him to enter this kind of life.
There's been a few kind of similar lines in other rap songs, but what he says in verse 2, we was selling dope to the family like it was nothing wrong. And if ever there was a way to make using drugs and selling drugs not be glamorized in rap music, it's saying like, no, this is something I feel guilty about. Like when I think of a crack fiend, I'm turning my family into that. And those people that I'm using for profits, all in service to this addiction. So again, playing into that strong theming.
I just had a question for Mark, and I'm directing most of my questions toward you, not because I'm like picking on you or anything, but you're the one who's expressed like the most positive opinion about this album. So that's why I'm sending it your way. I just want to know what makes this, because a lot of the content we're going over, we've heard from other artists. So I'm wondering what makes Mozzy stand out to you that you'd recommend him to other people? Like with Tupac and Biggie, like they have their voices. J. Cole, he has his like basically like just lifting samples, in some cases whole beats. Like so like what about Mozzy?
So for me, what I like about Mozzy the most, if I have to pick one thing, is how grimy his lyrics are. Which is why I said this isn't my favorite album by him, because he doesn't have a lot of that. It's a pretty passive reflection. Like he obviously, as we just read, touches on some really hard topics, but it's not as grimy. Where like if you go and listen to his song, blah blah blah, it's 2015. It's like heavy. Like just the way he's describing things is incredibly dark, and it's a way that you don't see a ton, even from other gangster rappers. Like yeah, they all live a very similar life. Like if you're a gangbanger, I don't care what part of the country you're in. Like if you're a street gangbanger, if you're a Cripper of Blood, like you live a very similar lifestyle to other gangbangers. And so they all rap about the same topics, but he's typically incredibly detailed in his.
Oh, okay.
This just wasn't the album for it, so I'm sorry.
So what did you guys, if you're okay moving along songs, we are running a little shorter on time here, but Big Homie from the Hood, the last song of the album, was actually one of my personal favorites. And I thought the album did a good job of starting strong and ending strong. Mark, when you're talking about like when he gets really grimy, I think Big Homie from the Hood is a great example of that. When he goes back selling drugs again, because that's the only thing he could do. But he says, if you ain't selling dope, then you was broke in the hood. Name ringing bells, well known in the hood. I understand why Juan and Milo especially, his voice doesn't really do it, but when I dig into the lyricism, I think that I like this album more and more on subsequent listens. And this is actually one of my favorite songs that has grown on me the most.
That's peculiar to me that he ended the album. So he ended the album talking about going back, like you were mentioning, Snot Island, going back to his old ways, and used a popular R&B sample from the early 2000s. And Polo G did did pretty much the same thing on his album with Changes, and then the message of that song was things won't change.
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm wondering,
interesting. Damn.
Polo G and Mozzy, they're not. I mean, this is probably the first time they've crossed paths, I guess, or what?
I mean,
they wouldn't.
Polo G's Chicago, so they're not from the same hood or shit like that. So I don't really know. I'd imagine they probably weren't super close before all this, but
we should also say that Mozzy's album came out first.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're just reviewing it today.
Yeah, so it came out.
Okay.
Polo G's came out like a couple weeks later, I think.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay.
Like 3 weeks.
Yeah. So there's one thing I real quick want to mention. He says it in the song. Let me look real quick. So lonely. You ain't prostituting your pussy, then you fire baby. She don't get that Louis purse she want, then she a crybaby. So Mozzy sold drugs, but actually instead of like selling drugs, he was mainly known for pimping in Sacramento. I actually watched the interview where he talks about it a little bit on how selling drugs like got to a point where it was no longer profitable. Like you actually like wouldn't make that much money, or at least a ton of money selling drugs, one, and then two, the risk factor for getting caught for selling drugs was just super high. Like if they find this or that on you, it's automatic this, automatic that. Whereas for prostituting, it's a lot harder apparently to pin it, because you got to also get the prostitute confess also that she was prostituting for him. And so I don't think he says it in this album at all, but there's other albums where he like shouts out his prostitutes for never talking, while they're in the police station and shit like that, and like holding it down solid. And he actually like laments about that a lot, also too, in his music, of how he felt really bad, or he's really happy that he made it in rap because he no longer has to like sell women for money. And like it wasn't something that he was happy necessarily doing, but it was just a way for him to eat in the hood. And it's like it's once again, that's a lifestyle that most people will like never understand, like not even close to like, okay, I either gotta sell drugs, which will turn people into fiends and they won't have their family members, or I gotta go take this girl and sell her at some hotel in order to make money.
Going back to Big Homie from the Hood, I wasn't really able to get into the song at all just because I'm so in love with the Mario song and just kept being angry that it wasn't the Mario song. It's like, it's so good. And like Mario's voice didn't really come in, and that just saddened me too much. So I really should have paid more attention, but I couldn't let that go.
Well, because I don't know that song. This is the first time that I've heard this. So then I guess that comes with a lot of, I don't have that same expectation of like, you have to live up to the original song. I definitely like empathize with that, because when we were reviewing Dark Lane demo tapes and Drake just like used that whole line from Eminem like 5 times, and I was just like, come on, a little more than this. But I mean, I did appreciate when Polo G did it, and I appreciated it here, but I definitely knew the old Tupac song, even if I didn't know this Mario song here.
Yeah, I didn't mind it as much on those two examples because I don't really care about Tupac or Eminem as much as I care about Mario's song "Let Me Love You." So that just feels very different to me. But also, I also want to talk about "So Lonely," which Mark brought up for a bit. I thought the hook was really great on this song.
I did like the hook.
Yeah, I like the
really
hook
catchy.
too.
It felt kind of modern, but it also felt like it fit the kind of early 2000s sound that he has. And also, I kind of, as I was listening to it, I assumed that it was kind of a love song in the hook. But then as I kept listening to it and listened to Shawty's like little outro, where he starts like listing all of his friends who he's lost, like RIP to all these different people, it made me realize that no, he's actually talking about like all of his lost loved ones who he misses and who he feels lonely because they're not around. And so I thought it was really interesting the way that they kind of played with our expectations on the hook like that.
This is the song that I think has gotten stuck in my head the most. The chorus and the lines, and then I also appreciated the way that RIP and then RIP, RIP, RIP just kind of makes it, we're not just rap music, but these are people who aren't with us anymore that I really care about.
In verse 1 of that song, Mozzy says, "Miss you like never before, mentioned in hell of my songs. Can't seem to let you go, tripping forever, it's on. Wish you answered the phone, nigga be like, why? Why they still the real ones and leave the suckers alive? Hey, I don't understand how they love you and never slide. You ain't trying to yellow tape nothing, why you subscribe." So one, just like he can't stop mentioning his dead homies in his songs. I'm pretty sure he's talking about his homie Zilla Zoe because he mentions them goddamn every song I've ever heard of by Mozzy. The line specifically. So remember I was saying about how calling peace, and it's hard to ever call the truce because you have to. That means you have to let your homie's murderer go. And in this song where he says, "Hey, I don't understand how they love you and never slide." He's calling other gangsters out, say like, "You say you love your homie, but you know you ain't slid for him. You ain't go, shoot the people who killed him." And so for him, it's like you don't even love your friends if you don't go after the people who shot at him, who killed him. Retaliation is so goddamn deep. And like
it's a very different ethic.
Gang warfare. It's a completely different ethic of, like you actually don't love your friends. You don't love your family if you don't go and shoot the people who oppose them. So like it really changes your like the way your mind completely works in that sense.
Anybody have anything for Bulletproofly?
The name made me laugh.
Yeah, it's
I did think it was an interesting name.
I liked it.
I thought it was Bulletproof Fly. And then I heard him say Bulletproofly.
I thought it was a really great continuation of Betrayed. They felt like a pair of songs that work really well together and kind of come after one another that continue in the same themes of betrayal.
I thought the production was good on Juan. Did you like the production?
On Bulletproof, I loved the introduction, and I liked the really light vocal sample that was there. The beat itself, like the drums, weren't anything special to me. Why do you ask?
It seems like you and I had pretty similar opinions about the technique and productions at the outset of this.
What did you think?
Well, no, I just, that's pretty much the only note I have. I didn't catch too much lyrical content. As far as the execution on the rap, it was still the same. Like the reason I asked about the song is because it's the one I have the least amount of comments for.
Got it.
And it's also gone pretty much unmentioned during. So I got the impression like probably also the least enjoyed by all of us.
Yeah, this one didn't have a ton for me.
I thought Boyz II Men was the worst. That one was,
really? So Boyz II Men, I wrote a note. Boyz II Men has the most typical like Mozzy production. So he uses this producer who's also I actually think he's part of the same gang, but another Sacramento producer, June on the beat. And I don't know if this was produced by him, but this is like that sound, like the intro with the bass, like how it hits. I swear to God, like if you go early back, like every Mozzy song has this type of sound. And so if you don't like the production for Boyz II Men, you probably won't for most of his old songs.
Yeah, it was mostly the 808s felt just really gross sounding, and the tempo didn't sound right to me.
Yeah, that was the one where he talks a lot about snitches too. I tend to whisper when there's a rat in the room.
Yeah,
like that. Question. So we could go back to that, but what y'all think about Body Count? I don't really hear anybody mention that. That was like the first banger in the album.
So that's one of the few songs where.
Go ahead, Mo.
I was just going to say that's one of the few songs I actually have a line for when he says, "I put his ass in the clouds." What were you about to say about the beat, Juan? Because I have a feeling it's the same thing I have written down.
I was going to say that it sounded like off-brand Mike Will Made It.
Okay. I have basic written down.
I think we were saying the same thing there.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I thought the features killed it. They all flowed really well.
Really? So I love G Herbo. Like I fucking love G Herbo. But I like you want to talk about off beat, bro? Like I didn't think he was rapping to the track. I feel like they just put it on the song. Like, I love and like this is no shade, bro. I fuck with G Herbo heavy, bro. Heavy, but his verse on this was so whack to me. I did think the second feature though, or the first feature, King Von. Yeah, I thought he murked it. He did great.
I thought G Herbo sounded really awkward at the start of the verse, but I thought he picked it up later on and made up for it.
Wild, bro. I thought his verse was so bad, bro.
I actually really liked G Herbo's verse too. And to me, it just feels like, again, I like variety a lot. He has a unique voice, especially on this album. Like no one sounds like him, especially on this song. This is actually to stay here for a little bit. This is more one of my favorite songs just because it is so up tempo and it is like a banger, right? This is going to be one that I like actually come back to a lot just because it has kind of a different feel than the Polo G album we listened to, and the rest of this album I did appreciate.
Mark, you didn't like when he said blah da 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 like Mozzy?
Mozzy? That was the first line I recognized, and I was just like, "Come on!" Like it's like I don't know, bro. I just felt like that was such a lazy verse. I've heard so much better from G Herbo. I like when I first saw this track, and like because I watched the music video like way before like I even heard this album. And I was like, oh fuck, like Mozzy and G Herbo is about to be dope. And bro, I just left so goddamn disappointed. Like I thought the beat was cool, I thought Mozzy was cool, I thought King Von was cool, but G Herbo's verse was just not it, bro.
So on the topic of features, real quick, I had one quick question. Did you guys feel like on I Ain't Perfect that Blast sounded a lot like he was doing a Young Thug type impression?
Yeah, I could see that.
It didn't come to mind, but yeah, like when you mentioned it, I could see it, yeah.
Because I really thought that because like every album we review on this podcast has a Young Thug feature on it, right? So that's what I thought this was. I thought we were getting to that part. But then I was like, oh, the lyrics actually make a lot more sense than Young Thug normally does to me. And then I saw that.
Yeah, they don't seem eccentric enough lyrics.
Yeah.
I thought it was Akon when I heard the hook.
Akon?
If only.
Yes, and it reminded me of that Hola, ¿cómo está? She said, Konnichiwa.
Oh,
imagine if he got an Akon feature. That would have been amazing.
No, I was like, what?
That would have fit the vibe he was going for perfectly.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Yeah.
I did think that the hook on Can't Let You Go sounded like a lot like Usher or Trey Songz.
Which brings us back to that feel, right? That this reminds me of the 2000s.
The features really added to that.
Yeah.
The singing ones, at least.
Not always in a bad way. I like going back. I love the 2000s rap, so I like going back there.
Real quick on the song Off the Muscle, Mozzy has a line where he says, your son ain't got no life insurance, I'ma shoot it to you, and we gonna make sure that he buried like the king he is. So he has a lot of songs, particularly, or a lot of lines, but particularly this one song on the One Up Top album. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but the music video takes place on a funeral service. He had in the hook, he's talking to his dead homie's mom, and he has so many songs where he's talking directly to his dead homie's mom, saying how like we're gonna go slide for your son, or I'm gonna pay for the funeral, or shit like that. And like I don't know, like I've sat there for nights just listening to his music and just like reflecting on that idea of like, what if I can't imagine going to my friend's mom, and being like, yeah, don't worry, we're gonna get revenge for him, or like going like, yeah, I know we're gonna pay for the funeral because he died, shooting for us or whatever. Like, it's once again, it's just such a foreign idea to me. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Like, he just has a lot of lyrics like that typically through his music.
So, I'm going to comment from like the really like privileged position that I do come from. To me, that idea of like getting revenge for my friend's mom by killing this other person feels greedy to me, because if a mother loses her son, it's not going to be like, revenge isn't going to be what she's thinking about, right? She wants to see her son again. So
sometimes,
and
depending.
Okay, maybe I am wrong, but it just feels like going through that cycle again isn't going to bring anyone's son back. And I feel like for a lot of mothers, it's like nice that Mozzy would like pay for a funeral or something, but it's a funeral, right? And so I understand the logic. I really hope that Mozzy can kind of like in the future break out of this mindset and be different, because I think about lines like that a lot too. I kind of view it really negatively that like, this is what you have to say to someone's mom, that instead of saying like, I'm sorry that I brought your son into this lifestyle, but now I'm going to go kill someone else. Does that make you feel better?
No, I get you. It's just like if I had a child that died and one of his friends like, don't worry, we're gonna go kill the person who killed him. Like, that wouldn't make me feel better. That's like by any means. So I for me, it's like when he's talking about paying for the funeral, like he's empathizing with the mother or whatnot. But the getting revenge isn't for the mom. The getting the revenge is for him and the gamers.
Okay.
That's just so you know, like we're gonna go kill them too, which the funerals then never stop. Mozzy has another line on a different song where he says, the only reason you should hate me is if you're the family of a murder victim. And so it's like he recognizes, that it's a cycle that just legitimately does not end. There's people who are taking away his friends from their mothers, and then he's taking away other people's, sons and whatnot. And so it's just this really vicious cycle of this like incredibly like fucked up world that he's in, that like for most people these morals and these ethics are like, wait, what? Like that's not a good thing to do. And in his world it's like, dude, you're not a real friend if you don't do this. It's just a complete reversal.
No, it's just what Alan was saying. It reminds me so much of a movie. I can't remember what the name of the film was, but it's almost this exact scenario. Like the gang members came to the mom talking about how they're going to get revenge, and the mom was
Colors?
just like, "No, like
is it Colors?"
I'm not sure. I can't remember off top.
It happens in that movie.
It's exactly what Alan was saying. Like these are the people. He'd be alive if it weren't for y'all. Like all of this going and killing people.
Exactly.
This gang lifestyle is what killed them in the first place. Like get out of my house.
Earlier, Mark brought up that gang life is a lot like a war, and there are a lot of mothers who are very proud of their sons and daughters for going off to fight these wars that are often rooted in just like kind of in a more localized way, but like histories of people going back and forth for petty shit, right? I think especially when your local area is your whole world, I understand that kind of anger and the desire for vengeance, even though I agree with you, Alan. I don't think it's a healthy thing. I think it's just going to reproduce more violence, right?
Yeah.
I also can totally like empathize that in that moment, there would be a part of me that really wants the people who hurt me and who hurt my family to suffer.
Yeah. And it's not even like it's a quick vengeance of like, oh, it's only because he shot me or my friend and I'm getting back. It's like deep rooted vengeance. Like, no, he shot him. His friend shot my other homie. Mm-hmm. Their OG shot my OG a few years. Like, it's just, it's deep rooted to where like, we can't let this shit go. And I was listening to a song by The Game recently. Milo, I actually like sent you the song. I don't know if you ever listened to it, but he's talking about like his coming up, and he's mentioned how like his mom and dad were Crips, and so like his mom was in this gang shit too. So I do get like there's probably a ton of moms who are like, this is not what I want. It's not what I want for my son or whatever. But then there's a lot of other ones who like even if they don't like it, they respect or recognize the gang life enough to be like, this is just a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know. At some point, I hope that Mozzy will see. At some point, it just has to end, and someone will die. But peace will have to happen after someone dies, and then they say, "I'm not going to seek revenge for this." But anyway, we have been going a little long. Do we want to plug this into the spice-o-meter?
Yes. I'm excited to hear what y'all got to say about this. But anyway, so I'm gonna give this. I'll give it a kind of spicy. It's like I said, I love Mozzy. I think he's incredible lyricist, to be honest, when it comes to content and just his descriptions. But this is by far like not even close to his peak of his work. There's at least 2 to 3 other albums I could think of that were all like pretty better than this one. So I am sad that this was your guys' introduction. I do wish that there was a different one, but I thought it was cool overall. It still had good lyrics that I liked, still had some cool beats and whatnot. So I'll give it a kind of spicy.
For me, I'm giving this a solid spicy, actually. Mark, thank you for bringing this album up. I did enjoy listening to it, and I am going to look forward to Mozzy in the future. Like we were saying, it got me thinking about like the cycles of gang violence, the cycles of like drug addiction and selling drugs. My feedback would be I wish the album could feel a little more varied. It did sound a lot like Polo G at times, I do agree with, and it did sound like a lot of 2000s era rap, but I gotta give it a spicy because it got me thinking about stuff. There are songs that I'm gonna come back to for sure. So solid spicy for me.
Yeah, as has been brought up before, I've also seen him in concert, and he was very fun at the concert.
Yes, very fun.
And the tracks that I got to kind of preview there, I thought a lot of them were really great, and a lot of them were great for a concert setting. But as far as this album goes, I'm going to say it's a not spicy. Yeah, too much of a bad version of the 2000s sound for me. And I wasn't really into his flow or lyrics or anything. So not the best for me.
I'm going to go ahead and give this not spicy as well. What actually pulled me through this album was the production, which isn't even the best. So but his execution to me was just too poor for me to give it a spicy at all. So not spicy.
That's fair. Whatever. I'll let it go. But yeah. And real quick, Alan, something you just mentioned about how like the reflection it brought for you. I tend to I reflect a lot when I'm sitting there listening to music. When I listen to Mozzy is when I tend to reflect the most, just because of the way he puts things and makes me think about things. Like I'll listen to one song and I'll sit there and be thinking about the world that you must come from to write something like that for like an hour. Alan, do you want to mention what we're doing next time?
First, we got to pick a couple tracks to put on the playlist.
We do.
Well, I'll give my two right now. Can't Let You Go and So Lonely.
Can't Let You Go and So Lonely. So for me, I want to put actually two songs that come back to back. I Ain't Perfect and Can't Let You Go.
I'm going to say So Lonely and I Ain't Perfect.
I'm going to say Unethical and Deceitful and Overcame.
So it sounds like I Am Perfect and So Lonely are.
Yeah.
Me too.
All right. So we got I Ain't Perfect and So Lonely. I'm going ahead and throwing those on right now. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a very, very fun episode coming out for you next time. We are going to be discussing the discography of Mr. Kanye West, someone who, if you're listening
and why graduation.
It's going to be such a heated episode. Yeah, it's going to be like a 4-hour argument.
Oh my gosh.
Fun story. This is the first time I met Juan. We actually argued about Kanye's worst album. Yeah. I actually have a different worst album now than when I met Juan, but we won't get into.
I still don't.
Juan still doesn't, but this is going to be a fun one, guys. Be sure you're tuning in this one. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Y'all, thank you for listening. Appreciate it. Have a great one.
Bye.
Later, guys.
Ciao.